Thanks, Brandis. And earlier in the program, we discussed the COVID stimulus proposal. And joining us once again are members of the Illinois congressional delegation, Robin Kelly, Marie Newman, Bobby Rush, and Raja Krishnamoorthi. And as a reminder, we invited every Republican member of this delegation, but none accepted our invitation. Let's talk about impeachment first. Congresswoman Kelly, President Trump's lawyers say his speech was protected by the First Amendment at that rally before the riot happened. Congressional Democrat impeachment managers say he is responsible for what happened. You see that there aren't many Republican senators on board for this. Where do you think the trial is going to go in the Senate?
Well, I think we absolutely must have the trial. I think there needs to be consequences, whether he's convicted or not. I think we have to bring him to trial. And I believe he did incite what happened. I don't think he was alone in inciting what happened. And it wasn't just that day. It's been the buildup and more buildup and more buildup that culminated in that day. I mean, we lost 5 people that day, and then I believe 2 more officers to suicide. So there were a lot of negative things that happened that day beside the members caught in their offices, crouched behind steps, and things like that. So no matter what happens, I do think that we should go through with the impeachment trial.
Congressman Rush, we alluded to this in the first segment. The Congresswoman from Georgia, Marjorie Greene, who has espoused some bizarre QAnon theories, talks of a Jewish space laser, and, just completely off the reservation things. Do you think there would be votes in the Congress to expel her, as Democrats have called for?
I think that there will be votes to expel her, but I have a different vantage point. I'm looking at 2022. I think that Marjorie Jones Greene could be a very valuable personality and image for Democrats in 2022. Marjorie Jones Greene is the Republican problem. She's not the Democrats' problem. And I think that the Democrats ought to understand what happened to us in this past election. The Republicans were very smart and canny about how we lost seats of Democrats based on them vilifying and mischaracterizing Democratic members of the House, particularly AOC. We lost seats based on that. We lost seats based on them characterizing Nancy Pelosi and others as socialists. Well, I believe that Marjorie Jones Greene represents a fascist element in our society. And the Republican Party is leaning more and more and more, as evidenced by January 6th. They're leaning more and more and more toward fascism. I don't think that we need to rescue the Republicans from Marjorie Jones Greene. We need to tie her to them and tie them to her. And we need to put her before the American people and say, is this who you want to represent you in Washington, D.C., in the Congress? Or
and
people like her?
To that effect, Congressman Rush, even Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell has called her, quote, a cancer on the party and on the country. Congressman Krishnamoorthi, should she lose, at the very least, that spot that she has on one of the congressional committees?
Yes, I think that she should be treated at least the same way that Steve King of Iowa was treated last term, where he was stripped of his committee assignments. Now, then it will be up to the voters of her district whether they actually want somebody who's powerless to do their business in Congress, and they can decide that in the next election. But I think that she's done enough to merit at least that type of sanction or penalty.
Congresswoman Newman, let's pivot back to a policy issue. President Biden has announced more executive orders on immigration, including a wholesale review of the family separation policy at the border. Is there enough here that you believe these families can be brought back together and some of these children that have lost their parents can find them again?
Well, here's the tragedy of this. There are hundreds of families that are still torn apart. I think this task force is not only necessary, it's imperative. If we can get one child reunited, it is absolutely worth it. But we have to get these families back together. What the Trump administration did to these families is beyond horrifying. It is our job, as always, Democrats come in and correct the immorality of what's come before them. So we will correct this, and I think this is a good first step, and I encourage it.
Congresswoman Kelly, what immigration legislation might we see from Congress, given the hyper-polarized nature of this issue and of the country in general?
Well, we've been talking about this for a long time, and I know President Biden wants to see what can we work on to provide a pathway to citizenship for, I believe it's 11 million people, plus what can we do around DACA, around all of the young people that were brought in when they were very young. I expect to see certainly legislation around that, going back from what Trump did, but also I expect to see some legislation around the 11 million people that want to be citizens of the United States. Many are working, many are contributing, and we need to see what we can do to make them U.S. citizens.
And Paris, I'm an immigrant myself. Can I jump in for a second?
Yeah, go ahead, Congressman. Just very quickly.
Yes, as an immigrant, I think that the entire immigration system, it has to work for America, but that also means a pathway for these 11 million undocumented, as well as the dreamers, as well as high-skilled immigrants. These are the people that come here and enrich our technology space, as well as our economy, and create jobs for all Americans.
And those issues have gotten some bipartisan support over the years. We're going to have to leave it there. And as a reminder, we invited every Republican member of the delegation tonight, but none accepted our request. We do thank Representatives Kelly, Newman, Rush, and Krishnamoorthi for joining us. Thank you all again, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.